and welcome to a cover story conversation. Today we're in conversation with Deep Kalra. He is the founder and chairman of Make My Trip, and Jangbir Singh, director of sorry, and Jangbir Singh, director at Celebi Airport Services Limited. I'm going to be talking to both of them about, of course, what is happening to the air travel industry after the third variant that has come in, or another variant that has come in. I've given up count. But we were just taking off. International flights were set to resume from Delhi, from India. And then suddenly we were hit almost with the blink of an eye with the new variant. And everything had to change yet again. What does this bode for the travel industry? What does it bode for the mess at the airport? Because we've all heard horror stories from those who have landed. So we have someone on the ground there because Jangbir's firm does the ground handling of 7 airports, including Delhi and Mumbai. And Deep, of course, is a veteran. He's going to be telling us where the travel industry is really headed. So I'm going to first begin with you, Deep. Where do you see things that are, what is happening right now in terms of flights? Are you getting a lot of cancellations in terms of just the sheer numbers?
Sure. Thank you, Priya. Thank you for having me here. So clearly the announcement of the Omicron variant has put a spanner in the works. We all know that in India, things were progressing really well from a travel point of view and overall. And I think the growing kind of consensus was that India is not going to have a third wave at all. And either it was our herd immunity in the second wave, or it was the very impressive vaccination kind of scale that we had managed to do. A combination of both, and more scientists were now kind of coming to the conclusion that we should be out of the woods. And this was giving people a lot of confidence also. I think on the ground too, in most of the big cities, we were seeing very few cases. The cases were localized. So that was giving a lot of confidence. And in a country like India, if the cases are between 10 and 20,000, except where you have a concentration, people are actually quite confident and they go about. So Make My Trip to Go Ibibo as well, we were seeing a really good comeback on demand. So fantastic. October, we all know the Sera period, Diwali period, everyone was traveling. And everyone said, oh my God, after Diwali, this is going to happen after that. And thankfully, there was, whether it was Puja holidays in Bengal, or it was Ganesh Chaturthi in Maharashtra, or it was Diwali in most parts of the country, definitely the north, thankfully, nothing came up. So October went well, November was great, December was going well, like I said, till literally, 10 days ago when Omicron was announced. And that definitely put a fear. Right or wrong, only time will tell. But I think the fact that WHO announced and declared this as a variant of concern, of grave concern, I think, and that definitely made everyone kind of, get worried, but also the measures that were taken. Again, we can debate whether these measures have been too harsh, have they been knee-jerk, but the reality is those measures were announced. A couple of states had to change them quickly, which was good because I think the measures that Maharashtra announced were probably too draconian. And that got people concerned. And, the reality is no one wants to fly when there is going to be testing when you arrive and a potential quarantining. I think no one wants to do that, especially with institutional quarantining, that very word people are saying, we're not going to take this risk. And there was a knee-jerk reaction. And I think you would know the overall numbers, but I can tell you even for ourselves, we saw a drop almost instantly of 15 to 20%, and that almost that week got wiped out. Happy to say that the last 3 days, we're seeing a nice pickup again. We're still under, the water when you look at if the level was pre-Omicron announcement, we're still 10% under, but it's coming back. So I think with every passing day and no serious cases, people are getting more confidence. And that's the reality. I think if we have a large number of cases in India, which are with the new variant, but they're all mild, which is what it seems to be, fingers crossed, then I think this could even be what some scientists are saying, the beginning of the end of the pandemic. I obviously don't know enough about that, but I'm hoping that's the case where we have now a weaker variant. So that's broadly, I'll stop here and happy to answer all the other questions later.
Okay. Jangbir, you also come in on also what is happening right now. Have things improved since that first week? We saw the horror stories at the airport, of people landing in the rush at the testing centers. Have things improved a bit at the airport? What is happening? And are you as hopeful as Deep?
Well, we are, but what happens is being on the ground, we have to follow very strict protocols. And, we touched upon this before. And like Deep was mentioning, but I differ a little. It's not a knee-jerk reaction. The thing is, there isn't a total establishment yet of what all we can do to prevent transmission. Airports being where there's a huge pass-through. So the first factor being, an airport is a pass-through for passengers. It's not a place where we collect them. This, and the SOPs or the standard operating procedures at most Indian airport surpasses anything in the West. I don't know, you may have traveled. By the time you've cleared your immigration, most of your bags are on the belt. And that's what it is. Sometimes, so if we can, sometimes duty free also feels upset about that, because the more you hang around at the airport, you'll tend to buy. But that is how efficient most Indian airports are. So, we may fail to recognize that, as Indians, but we are extremely efficient. So airports are designed for people to pass through, not hang around there. Now, coming back to the situation we are living with, any instant notification which comes is instant, and we have to act upon it rapidly. By these notifications, it's not that you scale up by 5-10 people, because each aircraft holds 250 to 300 people minimum. And now we have a huge backlog, because if testing has to be done, there are a plethora of other things which are added with that. Ministry of Health is there and they need to okay it. You want to keep the passengers, yet you have to maintain social distance. So it's a colossal challenge. So as much as some of the images were quite disturbing, but these things will happen. Security did that. We touched upon this earlier. When security became paramount, that's what happened, till we sort of streamlined that effort, and the efficiencies came in and you pass through that. But now we have, sanitizing, and then suddenly if a notification runs out that a certain country are put, or a bunch of countries are put on a red alert list, most of the passengers who are arriving wouldn't be aware that the place where they're coming in from, they've been put under certain restrictions or guidelines. And we have to make sure that efficiently works right away. And then there are going to be questions, answers. So it is a colossal challenge. And I believe 1 or 2 days of this to prevent a spread of an epidemic out from the airport should be reasonably acceptable.
That's my question, Deep. I was talking to a lot of doctors and epidemiologists. They are saying that travel bans only delays it. It doesn't prevent it at the end of the day. So all this testing and all, is it really the need of the hour in that sense? I know it's a government decision, but travel bans did not delay or prevent the Delta variant from coming in.
Yeah, so and just to clarify, Janveer, so I said perhaps it was knee-jerk, time will tell, and especially the couple of states which actually changed the guideline. So I think the fact that you put a whole bunch of countries, including all countries of Europe, and not all countries are badly affected, and UK and everyone else for mandatory 7 days of institutional quarantine, that definitely was excessive. And also I think
I only came in because we took a lot of heat for that. So
fair enough. The ground. Fair enough. But Priya, you raised a really good point. And I am actually a huge advocate of testing and traveling. And now I think testing, travel, and test again. I think there's nothing wrong with that. That is the only thing we can do, and that is not foolproof. As we all know, the virus incubates for a while, it won't get detected. And therefore, I believe one of the best models in place is perhaps what Dubai has been doing. So Dubai, you have to go to Dubai, and if you're not transiting through, if you're, not 72 hours before, 48 hours before you take an RT-PCR. By the way, US has just changed it to 24 hours before. And why not? Because today you can get your reports in 6 to 8 hours. So why even give that, get as closer to travel as possible to test the person? Because otherwise you can test 72 hours before and you could still be going out and still pick it up. And then you're tested 6 hours before while you're at the airport. And technically you're not supposed to leave the airport. Of course, the masking and all stays. And then you're tested through a rapid kind of PCR test, which is expensive, but is done for free on arrival and is done very efficiently. And I think that's what Janveer was saying. We're probably doing a great job of how efficiently we are managing so many things. I just feel Yes, one odd, kind of, I think instance can happen, and that's probably those pictures get blown up. This is media. We should learn from that, and it shouldn't happen again. So I think, and I'm sure they've done the math, someone needs to do the math that if you have 3 flights arriving together, and just to take the same averages and 3 big flights international means 1,000 people coming in. We're going to test 1,000 people. Do we have that infra, or should we stagger flights? And changing flight schedules is hard, but perhaps you can do a bit during these times because you have lesser flights. That's the only point. Do we have the infrastructure to do that? Because we are saying, if you go for a regular RT-PCR test, you will wait 6 hours, and it could be 8 hours for the result. Doesn't that make it a hot pot? Where are you going to wait? It's a huge airport, but you're typically corralled into one space, and that's where you stay. And if you pay, of course, 3,900 extra or whatever it is, then you get the fast track. That also, I think, for testing, I think you need one standard. We need to figure out, someone has to pay for it. Yes, if you can pay an international ticket, you can pay for a test. I think that time and motion study should be done. We've had 1 or 2 bad experiences. We've seen those pictures. They are scary. Okay, let's learn from those, because there is a lot of space at the airport. So how do we spread it out? How do we get more testing counters? How do we ensure that people aren't herded in such a way that you might pick it up there? So, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. So don't do a ban. So I'm with you 100%, Priya. Travel ban, and not because I'm in travel. That's not going to help. This, either the whole world does a travel ban, and, clearly you can't do that forever. The virus has anyway traveled. By the time you discover a new variant, thousands of people have actually left with it. And most of them will have mild cases you won't even know. So the only way out of this is to be as much practical testing as possible, as much real masking. Like today, I don't understand why we don't make it mandatory for a surgical or an N95 mask when you're flying. I was in Ahmedabad this weekend and I still see people with cloth masks. What's the point? If you're wearing a mask, you might as well wear the best kind of mask so that at least it's 5 times more effective. And, social distancing, of course, makes a lot of sense. And all the other protocols that you can do. And I think that's the only way around. So find the right protocol. The world will gravitate towards that, hopefully, but at least India should do that. 72 hours is too long now. Make it 48 hours, make it 24 hours. Our tests are superb in India. Right now, there's no rush. You get a result back in 6 hours. So I think that's what we should be looking at. Triple testing, but rapid.
Hello and welcome back to Cover Story. We're in conversation with Deep Kalra and Jangbir Singh. We're talking about the travel scenario in COVID continuous world. But Jangbir, before the break, we were discussing what was happening at the airports. I just want to understand the testing area is from where? It's from the immigration, is before the immigration and between the aero bridge and the immigration. Am I right?
So how it works is any person disembarking from the aero bridge, they have to be first taken into the testing. Now, the testing areas have to be clearly defined, but these are narrow passageways, narrow compared to
corridors,
if you want to set up. So you come out the aero bridge, and if you're coming from a designated country which is on a list, you have to go into a separate holding. And in a separate holding, then you line up and you create the manifests and you do the testing. Then comes the challenge, do you want the 8-hour testing or you want the rapid testing? And trust me, there are enough people who do not want to pay over the 500 rupees, and then they would go for that. And that means by sheer virtue of things, you are going to be held up for 8 to 10 hours. And so, there are a lot of things, either like Deep was pointing out, we streamline this effort, but the airport gets left over with these problems because the streamlining has to come from central and state governments. And a lot of testing issues are driven by the state government. And like Deep attested upon what happened in Mumbai. Their guidelines work differently. So airports have a fantastic challenge, So let's put it this way, that what happened in Mumbai, a lot of people must have changed their flights to come into Delhi then. And they didn't want to go to this thing of institutional quarantine, which sounds almost like you're going to be put away into Gulag. But what can we do? Passengers get frightened. And then you have a testing issue. Then you got to wait. You have to wait for the results to come back. And they're going to be babies on board. They're going to be elderly. They're going to be people who require special assistance. Then you come up with the things of, I saw a lot of things being written around for tea and coffee. Fact is, you have tea and coffee, even if you have a vending machine or if you have a provision for it. some has foreign exchange, some don't, some have money, they don't have money. If I get into how this thing exponentially grows into a big problem, you can imagine the challenge an airport operator faces. So we are going to live with this, and this is going to be part of us. But to come to a streamlined SOP will take some time, and I'll tell you another reason why that's going to happen is because we were seeing a huge dramatic descent of the pandemic before Omicron kicked in. That means, let's say if you're a testing agency who was at the airport, you have sized up to maybe 1,000 or 2,000 personnel with that much equipment. All of a sudden, there's no business. There's a huge cost attached to this. Now you don't have anybody testing. It's not mandatory when you arrive. So it's only on departure. Let's say like Dubai has it. That's a very small fragment. Overnight, it gets kicked up. Now you need to ramp up everything. Your equipment is all over the place. You need the people who have been probably let go. So, and eventually, what people don't talk about is airport operators are less, or people at the airport are going to be left with a huge cost out of this. Where is that going to be attributed? Nobody's really thought about that. So it's really complex. So, where we reached in 2 days of chaos, I think I'm not trying to, blow a trumpet here, but we do a far better job than what's happening in most of the Western world.
But the impact of all this on the travel industry, Jagbir also spoke about the rising costs. Deep, I mean, you also must have seen your fair share of cancellations, as you talked about earlier. Is travel now going to be more and more domestic than international? Is international travel only going to be for business and, the must travel, the family and friends, no more tourist visits?
Clearly. So, Priya, I think even earlier on, if I can share, just broadly some numbers, being public, we can only share when we report out December quarter, we report it out in Jan. But very broadly, the recovery on domestic was so good that on certain days, we were actually almost getting very close to pre-pandemic levels. It was so good during November. Because the feeling of traveling with gay abandon was coming back, the fact that, this thing will pass, we'll wear our mask, we'll be fine. And with every passing day and with every passing trip. So, someone who's traveled and they've come back and they've told you it was fine, then you also get emboldened and say, I can do the same, etc. That's normal. Now we've taken 2 steps back. And you can't help it. In fact, I think Jagbir's really nicely explained the other side of it, just what all goes on the other side. That's true. I mean, most travelers, you see a picture and you freak out and you say, oh my God, this is crazy. But that picture plays on people's mind and they're saying, we're not going to do that. We don't want to be in that situation. To your point, domestic is definitely going to now eat up some of that leisure which people had started going international. So probably the only destination which actually grew ex-India through the whole pandemic was the Maldives. So the Maldives became the biggest gainer because in some sort of way, they are, well positioned for a kind of a pandemic, if you think about it, right? You get there, you go to your island, everything's open, and you're only on that island. So in some sort of way, if you have it also, it can be contained. And that happened in some cases. Remember, there was a case where people said we were quarantined there and we had to pay for extra 7 days, 14 days. So that freaked out people a bit. But then we brought out, and others also did, an insurance product, which is if you were hospitalized, if you do turn COVID positive when you're traveling, including to the Maldives, you have an insurance now for that. So then, the younger lot was saying we can go. So also there's been fatigue. I mean, we're now talking about getting into the 20th month of the pandemic or whatever. Yeah, I think that's right. 21st month. There is fatigue. People are like, we're done with this thing, right? And we have a life. But pragmatically, people are going to substitute their international trip, which they now planned. And Thailand had just opened up. And I'll talk about a charter that we put into place for Thailand, and people are going. But clearly now people say, listen, maybe we should just go to Goa. And Goa is, of course, the perennial favorite in India. But people are going to the Andamans. Andamans is back and open again. There is a little shortage of capacity, but people are going. I know a lot of people who have gone and are finding it far more open and easy. I think in India, people get the confidence that even if there's a problem, i.e. I test positive or someone in my family tests positive, in my traveling group tests positive, we'll figure out we'll be fine. The moment you're overseas, there's a lot of fear. What will happen? Where will we be put? How will we ever come back? How much will it cost? Etc., etc. So yeah, domestic travel is going to be the only way out. Also, I think that itself will depend not only on the testing norms, which right now I think within the country are fine, but what happens with the variant. So let's not forget, that's the most important thing out here. The most important thing is that the cases should stay mild. If they stay mild, you'll find people coming back again. So I'm in the last 3 days, Priya, we are seeing that -20 go to -10 already. So that's what it takes. And it's very fickle. And we saw cancellations. Jangveer rightfully said people again changed. International coming into Bombay were changing to come into Delhi, and other airports that get back to Bombay, etc. All that was happening. Now that doesn't need to be done because almost the same policy on arrival. But I do feel just one thing, which is because of the mammoth and the colossal task, like you say, of testing everyone, I think it should only be rapid. If you're traveling international, then you pay 3,000 rupees more, maybe rationalize that cost somewhere. Maybe make it about 2,000, but everyone does that. So for the company also, it's much better. So whoever has the contract, they say, okay, it's mandatory, it's 2,000 bucks, it's not 500, it's not 4,000, but everyone does this. Because right now, I think only about 20% are doing it. It was what I heard, and we will know the numbers. They don't want to pay more. That is one. The second is maybe we explore after a while mandatory wait at home or in your hotel till the time you get the result. Countries have done that too. So, that is your stamp and you're told you wait there till you get the result to decongest. Or maybe even within the list of countries, we need to have like a super hot or red and an amber and this thing, and we grade them. So maybe we learn. I think all of this is also changing very fast, like you rightfully said, Jangveer. So it'll be interesting to see how it finally settles down.
I like some of the solutions that have been offered. Why wait at the airport for your test? But I guess the corollary to that is that you'll go out and infect. Anyway, you have to go out from the airport.
So wait 2 hours, mandatory rapid. You give everyone in that 1-2 hours, but you charge them more. I think that's the need of the hour right now, and space out flights as much as you can because the airport is huge and now we have very few flights nowadays. So I think maybe a mix of those two. And I'm positive people, in the position are thinking about all of this every day. It just happened so fast. So we had to react, and we did the right thing by not banning. We did the right thing by putting testing protocols, and they were clear. They said, we're not banning travel. We're just putting testing protocols, which I absolutely agree is the right thing.
Jangveer, your take on all this, is what are the other measures that you see? How have we changed our reaction and, adapted apart from the first reaction?
Like Deep was saying, banning doesn't seem to work right. Banning creates more panic. It's almost like warlike situations. So you keep them, and I think as we evolving now, we know for sure this is not going to end right here. The pandemic may ease off or may sort of wither out a little bit, but testing is going to be part of our life. We have to streamline that effort completely so it becomes absorbed in your pattern of when you are entering and exiting an airport. And the cost of that is also done that. Now, we touched upon a couple of things earlier. One being that an airport is a complete economy in itself. Now, if I have a passenger coming in, with him, there is going to be restaurants, duty free, etc., which is attached. Now, if there is a sense of panic or an eagerness just to enter and exit, and you don't feel this is a safe, contained environment, all of that's going to fail. That means the airport fails, and the fantastic provisions you get inside an airport are, they're attached to that income source one way or the other. So to maintain and bring that back to a certain efficiency what it was before, we have to create this, and which is probably in the pipeline. I think the government should also look at that, centralize the effort. I totally agree with Deep. It should be a standardized testing, and which we can achieve. And there shouldn't be this provision that you sit for 8 hours and you do it. I think the Emirates have a fantastic solution where they have it. And once we are sure of that, then we are sure that this is the cost attached with it. This is how we're going to spread it out. And then you allow your lounges, the other areas to come back into effect. And then you would feel more confident that with a group of passengers that you're flying and you're going to be exiting or entering, there's a higher sense. It can never be 100% across the world anywhere. There's a higher sense of security that you'll feel that you're on board with. So, we are slowly approaching that. But, there are teething issues on the way.
But if you know about testing and all, one quick question, a little bit more. Can we take the samples on the plane? So at least when they land, people have at least that part of the queuing up is done over with. Is there a way to do that?
It's tricky, right? Because you need then a trained person, a technician to be on the plane for everyone. And also the samples can be all collected, but the real testing will only start when you get out. So I don't think the saving in time is commensurate to what you'll do on the cost, because then you need a technician on every flight, and who's going to pay for that person? So I think that's probably not even been thought of. Interesting. I like the way you're thinking out of the box. I think the trick is the rapid. Today, the technology is advanced a lot. So doing a rapid RT-PCR did not even exist when the pandemic started. So the fact that you can get a result, technically, if the batch goes in, you can get it in 1 hour, they say. So that machine is a specialized machine. Clearly, we need that. So there is a cost. And, maybe that's the only way now to keep everyone as safe as possible and at the same time not ban travel. So I think pragmatic testing before you take off and when you land is the only approach.
Before I let you both go, what are your plans? I mean, I'm looking for holiday destinations. So if either of you, where are you on, Jangbir, where are you headed on Christmas, New Year's?
Well, so far plans are still in the pipeline. My kids are back, my son's back. So, I got pulled him back from the US. So I'm just deciding with them what, like Deep was saying, what should be domestic, overseas. So I think the comfort lies domestically right now till we can see where this. So the next 2 weeks will actually tell you where this new wave is headed. So if hospitalizations and mortality, you shouldn't look at figures, because you should only look percentage to the population of that country. That will give us a clear picture of how aggressive it is. And if it's sort of, even if it spreads rapidly, a high positivity, but the mortality and the hospitalizations are low, it'll give us a lot more confidence to take that flight overseas. Otherwise, I'm calling Deep, he can fix me up on that flight, which we can't get to Goa.
That's absolutely.
Where are you headed, Deep?
With pleasure. So I think pretty much in the same boat as Jangbir. So even both our kids, they are heading back. One in the next couple of days, one in a week's time. So they both come back. They'll have to go through this because they're both coming through Europe or from Europe. And then we're trying to decide together, hopefully get away. We're quite happy just to be with them and go numb. So I was actually joking with them. If you have home quarantine, I'm quite happy. So me and my wife were saying that we have you to ourselves. And they're saying, no, that's not. But
they're not happy.
We got lucky just before the ban and all this, or rather before the severe restriction. We just got back actually from a banned country. So discovered a lovely new place off Mauritius called La Réunion, French territory, which was stunning. So we came back through Mauritius. So we would have had the same, saga at the airport. So we got lucky by a day almost. So let's see. I don't think it's a top priority. Just ideas to be together, and if it's a driving holiday, so be it. We were thinking of getting onto our charter plane and going to Phuket. So Make My Trip launched charters to Phuket, and we've done one. We're on the second one. So let's see. It all depends on day to day what's going. It's not a priority right now. Just having kids back. We're in that stage of life. That itself is holiday enough and festive enough.
On that note, and Jangbir, if you book that charter, let me know also.
Right.
Maybe we can take NewsX along with you. But
Maybe
that's
we
it.
can all go on that charter.
NewsX is coming. Thank you both, and thank you for this conversation, and wish you a happy holiday season and a safe one too. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Good to see you. Bye-bye.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.